Hey, Mark Dawes here, and I've just received an interesting news article which has been sent to me this morning, the headline of which reads, "Legal action taken against trust after doctor's suicide." Now, let me read to you what the news article says. And it says, basically, the widow of a doctor who took his own life following a sexual assault allegation is taking legal action against the trust he worked for and the General Medical Council. University Hospital of North Tees has been accused of failing consistent anaesthetist Sridharan Suresh by not putting appropriate support in place when the allegation was made. Dr. Suresh took his own life in May 2018 after he was suspended from the trust and placed under investigation by Cleveland police. His suicide followed a patient alleging he sexually assaulted her. However, the description the patient gave to the police of her attacker did not match Dr. Suresh, and the police later dropped the case due to insufficient evidence, according to a release from the BMA. The release said that Dr. Suresh was distraught when he first learned of the allegations. Senior managers at the trust told him he was not under investigation and he would not be referred to the General Medical Council. But the police did refer him, and within hours of receiving a letter from the GMC, Dr. Suresh took his own life. Now, it's claimed that two senior managers at the hospital were aware that the police had referred the case to GMC, but they failed to alert Dr. Suresh. Now, the British Medical Association said in a statement, "The widow of a doctor who took his own life is to be supported by the BMA in a claim against her husband's former employer and the GMC for negligence, and under Article 2 of the Human Rights Act, the right to life." Now, it's that part of the case which interests me. It's this Article 2 of the Human Rights Act, because all of you know, or at least should know, particularly if you are a restraint trainer, PMVA trainer, physical intervention trainer, call it what you like, that Article 2, the first part, is the positive obligation to preserve life. And all public authorities, be they direct or indirect, have a positive obligation, and it's an absolute right, can't be derogated against, to take steps to promote and preserve a right to life. Now, the reason this has struck a chord with me is that many years ago, a colleague and I were running a course for a local authority, shall we say, up in a particular area in the country. I won't mention where. And staff came to attend the training. It was a restraint training course. And one gentleman went and sat in the corner, and he looked very distraught. So I spoke to the manager and said, what's with this gentleman? Is he taking part or not? And the manager said, no, he wants to take part, but he's scared to take part because he's been investigated because he caused harm to a child. Now, the various inspectorates that were involved at the time were investigating this man. They were looking to refer him to a child protection list, to put his name on a child protection list for life. So that's his career over. He could no longer work with children. So I spoke to him, and he was nigh on suicidal. He was, very much, down, depressed, as you can imagine. His career was over. But with the help of some people I know, some lawyers and some professors of law, we got some information. We looked at the actual investigation, and it transpired that the people who investigated this had no knowledge of the law whatsoever. In fact, what this person had done was reasonable. It had prevented a greater harm from occurring and prevented the child from injuring itself and another child. Therefore, it was in the best interest of the child. So when we challenged this, they dropped the case immediately. It was fine. There was no referral. There was nothing. And we managed to resolve this. In another case that I was involved with, a member of staff was suspended pending investigation for child abuse. Again, a restraint-related issue. And this person was moved away from where he lived because he lived in a small community, and small communities get the rumour mill going, and they were, alleging things that weren't true, but were all related to the fact that he'd been suspended on a child abuse investigation which related to a restraint incident. Again, we were lucky enough to get involved with this. We managed to put the issue to bed based on the fact that the people who were investigating had no knowledge of the law in relation to the use of force. They were just making assumptions based upon their own bias. The man had done nothing wrong, but he'd been moved from where he lived down to another part of the country because of the rumour mill that was going on in his village, and this gentleman hung himself from a tree. So, but he'd done nothing wrong. My point with this video is, and I'm getting a bit pissed, to be honest with you, There are too many people out there in positions of influence and in authority who are making judgment on other people's actions wrongly. They're doing it incorrectly because they have no knowledge of the law, they have no knowledge of health and safety, they have no knowledge of anything to do with restraint. In fact, they've probably never restrained anyone in their lives. They're doing it based on an opinion. And this is happening not only at grassroots level within organisations, but it's happening up at government inspector level as well. And it needs to stop, because the bottom line is someone has now died as a result of this. This case here. There are other people who will probably die in the future, and that is a breach of the positive obligation to preserve life as provided by Article 2.1 of the Human Rights Act, which all public authorities are legally bound to comply with. In fact, it's a breach of Section 6 of the Human Rights Act if you don't comply with it, and it's absolutely negligent to make an assumption based on no knowledge whatsoever. In fact, if you look at the other videos I've done on this, you can track this through HSG 48 and see it's a rule-based or knowledge-based mistake. This is why our training is so specific and so legally comprehensive. It's not just about trying to be better than other training providers. It's about keeping people safe to the extent that some poor bugger doesn't take their life. I think this is shocking, and the case I've come across in the past are shocking. But more and more now, I've been in this industry 30 years. I'm seeing incompetent people in positions of influence and in positions of authority making opinionated decisions based upon their own personal judgment, their own personal opinion. It has to stop. The law is the law, and that's it, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that's my rant over. I just hope some of you take this message on board, and I just hope it stops someone from getting into a position like this poor doctor did here and ending up taking their own life. Okay, have a great day. My heart goes out to the widow of this doctor as well. Shocking. That's all I'm going to say. Absolutely shocking. Okay, speak to you soon.